there, and welcome to start of a new series of episodes, the Farewell to Cheap Pops series. Like most long form arcs, they usually have a prologue. So our prologue is going to talk about the infamous King of the Ring '98 Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Mankind. And so we're gonna talk about this because obviously last week was the 20th anniversary? Christ,
it's 20 years. It's not an anniversary because you don't include
yes,
the
of
first
course,
year.
of course.
We've had this before.
We've had this discussion before, of course.
Conrad Thompson, I love you, baby, but it's not a 20th anniversary.
Welcome to 83 weeks. Dickhead. No, he's
whoa,
great.
whoa,
No,
whoa.
he's great. I like him.
Whoa.
So
Don't call
yeah,
that.
20 years ago, there was just this Hell in a Cell match. Not a lot happened in this match, so I'm told. We actually watched this together, didn't we, on a weekend? This match.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen it probably a million times, and nothing. I don't think I think I could watch it another million times, but it will never lessen the impact of the stuff that happened. You know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Mm.
Probably because of how spectacular the bumps are as such.
Oh god, yeah. And just the visuals of it all.
Hmm.
Well, we'll get to that, but obviously this match happens. So 20 years ago, King of the Ring. Remember King of the Ring? I
liked King of the Ring.
And let's just run through what happened on this card, other than the match that we're gonna focus on. So, Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher beat Kai and Tai, Taka Michinoku, who's still around to this day. Good old Taka in New Japan, kind of still wrestling, yeah. Dick Togo,
I was going to
Men's
say
Funaki, they're all there.
I was going to say Taka actually teamed up with the Headbangers. But he joined.
Actually, no, sorry, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It's the Headbangers and Taka Michinoku against Kai and Tai. You're right.
That's it.
The King of the Ring, obviously, the main point of these shows. Well, the old main point of these shows. So, two semi-finals. Ken Shamrock defeated Double J, Jeff Jarrett, by submission, obviously. And The Rock defeated Dan Severn in what was a fucking dreadful match.
I like Dan Severn, but he was so out of place in WWF at the time.
Yeah, I think he would have done better in something like ECW or WCW, or ECW would have. I mean, imagine Heyman with Dan Severn. Imagine the bumps people would have taken for him.
I suppose, but he never. It's kind of funny because he is a legit shooter.
Yeah, and he's also a charisma vacuum.
That's the point. It's like he seems like a nice guy as well, which is quite funny because if he gets you out, I mean, have you ever seen the Brawl for All, where they basically they had to get rid of him because he was prepared, because it was like a point system, and if you take people down, you get a certain amount of points. But obviously, he's like, because he's actually a legit fighter, he just kept taking people down, getting a ridiculous number of points, and it's like shit. He's just going to steamroll through everyone in these boring, even more boring, Brawl for All matches. And I think he cut a promo and said, "I've done everything I need to prove," or something like that.
Who was supposedly earmarked to win Brawl for All? Do you remember?
Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Yeah, and then who knocked him out? Was it Bart Gunn, or was it? Yeah, Jesus.
Bart Gunn was like the MVP of that whole tournament because he managed to knock people out quite devastatingly, and they rewarded him by nothing.
They rewarded him by letting him get knocked out in a devastating fashion by Butterbean. But
they're adamant they didn't do that on purpose. But
yeah, my arse.
Bollocks. Yeah.
So, Too Much defeated Al Snow and Head.
How does he win? How do they win, Ruth?
I don't. It doesn't actually say how they won. It just says tag team match with Jerry Lawler as special guest referee, and I can't remember how they. Oh, sorry, didn't they defeat Head? But he had some weird. It was on some weird thing.
They put a bottle of Head and Shoulders underneath Head.
Yes,
so they pinned him with his shoulders to the mat.
Shoulders to the mat. There you go.
Bro!
Oh, fucking hell. It's not...
Whoa, what if the Head gets pinned with a bottle of shampoo? They're gonna fucking cream themselves.
Oh, there's Vince Russo, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for
I'm
joining
getting
us.
better at it. I'm doing better at it.
You're getting a little bit better.
Whoa.
I'll be honest. I watched a couple of shoot interviews the other day of Vince Russo, and sometimes, or this was, I can't remember. There's a couple of kayfabe commentaries series that he's done, like the time lapse ones, or the ones where they go through 96. The one where he goes through 98 WWF is actually quite good. I mean, I don't like him, but he does come across quite well in some of these things.
Don't open up Pandora's box because you'll get all 6 of his fans coming to us.
Nah, he can go suck my dick. Anyway. So, too much is... when did too much become too sexy? Couldn't have been long after this.
Too much became too cool. 2000.
That's it. Gotcha.
It might have been late 99. Sorry.
Yeah.
One of those dates.
X-Pac defeated Owen Hart. The New Age Outlaws defeated the New Midnight Express. I think this was when they... Was this when they were letting Cornette have his little stupid NWA thing?
Yeah.
Or not, yeah. Could have been long before or after this. Yeah, no, less to debate that, the better.
Mm-hmm.
King of the Ring final was Ken Shamrock and The Rock. And Shamrock won by submission.
And Ken Shamrock went on to become one of the finest WWF champions ever.
He didn't even get a coronation.
No, but that was for the best. I still think that coronation's the cheesiest fucking thing ever, and I think it's like a proper gimmick killer.
Yeah,
They should have just had it like Edge had it in 2001, where he literally just carries around the trophy and just proclaims himself King of the Ring. But getting the scepter and the crown and the cape, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just instant death. Except King Barrett. That's it.
Yeah, Sheamus's one wasn't too bad.
He had the cool throne.
Yeah, well, he had
crown.
the bit like a Celtic one, wasn't it?
That's it. Yeah. No, two of them. But Brock never fucking did that.
No, of course he didn't. That would have killed him.
King Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Brock Lesnar.
So the King of the Ring final was followed by the match we're going to talk about in a moment. And then the main event of this show was Kane defeating Stone Cold Steve Austin in a first blood match for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. If Kane lost, he would have had to set himself on fire.
Whoa. What if we set the man on fire?
He hasn't got a speech impediment. He can say he's ours. Bro.
What if we set him on fire on pay-per-view? They're gonna buy it up.
As God is my witness, bro.
To be fair, as a 10-year-old, and Austin being Austin, I was like, well, that's the end of Kane then, because Austin's not going to fucking lose.
Maybe.
But then again, I was 10, and that means I was the primary audience for the WWF at the time, regardless of all those TV 14 warnings, so...
Yeah, because, titties, right?
No, mine was I was more ultra-violence.
Yeah, but... Well, actually, that's a good segue. So, right, ultra-violence. So, The Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell match. This is I believe this is the third Hell in a Cell match in WWF history. Because the first one was Taker against Michaels.
The classic.
Which is still fucking fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Michaels, that's very violent, that match.
It is, but it's so well paced, and it's one of those weird matches where, like, despite the fact there's a screwy finish at the end, it all kind of culminates like really well in terms of the story. And as you say, the action's just fantastic throughout it, and that's kind of segueing back to this match as to how the fuck do you top it. Well,
we'll get to that, and obviously that match had the introduction of Kane, which was great.
That's gotta be Kane!
You ever heard Cornette tell the story of it? It's so good the way he tells it.
Go on. Oh,
no, it's on YouTube. Just YouTube Cornette Kane. It's just like he just talks about how I think it's one of the things that he doesn't tend to moan about these days. He just talks about how they booked it and just he just describes it in this great exaggerated way, and it comes off really well because. Yeah,
I was going to say no as well. I always know the story that Cornette always said about. So Kane makes his debut. He rips the cell door off. Yep. And he tombstones Taker.
Yep.
And they were like, shit, Taker's got to get his revenge. And who pipes up and goes, whoa, what if Undertaker choke slams him through a table on Raw? And they're like, what? Why did you do it? But we've introduced the big monster, and your idea is that immediately after, despite the fact we're building up to WrestleMania, which is 5 months away, is for him to get his revenge immediately. Whoa. Scary thought how they could have fucked it up so quickly.
Well, as is often mentioned, Vince Russo in WWF had a filter named Vincent McMahon. And
Pal.
McMahon,
no.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, pal.
Don't like it, pal. No.
Well, right, so...
let's get to this match.
Right, let's lead up to this match. Let's just do some let's just do a bit of lead up. So at the moment, so around King of the Ring 98, the WWF, it's quite clear they're working towards a big Austin Undertaker match.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of King of the Ring 98, both Austin and Undertaker have got quite serious injuries. Austin has a very bad staph infection, which is very visible on the show because it's on his elbow. You see his elbow all padded up.
Yeah, his arm, I was going to say he's padded up to fuck.
Yeah, staph infections are quite serious. I think he was in hospital days or a couple of days before
he had a very high fever just days before this. So.
And Undertaker it's very visible. And you know what? I only noticed this like recent years when reading the stuff about the background behind this. Like he's got a broken ankle and he's actually hobbling. He's not even really trying to hide it.
I think he kind of can get away with it because obviously on the entrance he's doing the slow walk.
Yeah.
It's incredibly noticeable on the climb, the jump down from the cell when he lands, and he's just. Usually he's like a cat. He'll land on both feet and he'll do the hair flip, and it's like, fuck, you can't knock him off his feet. But as we'll get to in this match, he lands and it's like, oh shit, he's hobbling.
Yeah, so Austin and Undertaker are injured, and obviously they're building towards a big Austin Undertaker match. This would happen at SummerSlam 98, which is 2 months after this show. And that is still, in my opinion, one of the best pay-per-view cards WWF have ever put on.
Yeah, I fully agree. I remember I had to go away for the summer holidays and I was absolutely gutted because I couldn't actually watch it for weeks on end, just wondering what the fuck was going on. And then you're actually watching it set in Madison Square Garden. It's such a good show.
Yeah, it is.
Even though Austin gets concussed in about 5 minutes in the main event.
So just prior to this, on Raw, they had the second Hell in a Cell match, which was...
Oh, God.
Well, it was the Kane and Mankind who have just joined forces against Austin and Taker in a Hell in a Cell tag match. And they just kind of pair off Austin and Kane. I think Austin and Kane fight on the top of the cell, right?
Yes, they do. Coincidentally, this is the main event to Fully Loaded and the pay-per-view after this, and this is actually a better match than that fucking mess.
It was just a schmoz, really. They weren't ever really going to do a proper Hell in a Cell match on Raw at the time, I suppose.
No, this was to pop a rating. That was all it was.
Yeah, like the McMahon-Austin one arm tied behind my back kind of thing.
Exactly that, sir. Exactly.
So, but in the meantime, they can obviously use this as a booking device, and this is what sets the main event and the double main event for King of the Ring 98. So Taker is injured. He's got a broken ankle. Not incredibly mobile. Mick Foley wants to outdo the previous Michaels and Taker Hell in a Cell match. So the story goes that Foley and Terry Funk, good old Funker, were brainstorming ideas, and Terry Funk jokingly said, well, why don't you just both get up on top of the cell and let him chuck you off, with a chuckle. But Mick Foley, being the worker and the bumper he is, actually thought about it and kind of actually realised that he could probably pull it off. And him and Funk devise a plan that they then take to Undertaker, who apparently was incredibly hesitant upon first hearing it. What's the old quote? There's the old quote that he's given for when Foley tells him about it, and he's just like, Mick, do you actually want to die?
That's it, yeah. As if like, I'm not here to kill you, Mick. I don't actually want to be involved in this if you want to kill yourself.
Yeah, I can't remember the full details, but obviously, I think Conrad and Pritchard mentioned it the other day on something to wrestle with about. Obviously, Vince needed to be persuaded that he took these bumps. Anyway, it was agreed to. They agreed to let Foley do this fucking bump. As the story goes, both JR and Jerry the King Lawler obviously smart on the finish of the match, but not smart to the bumps that are going to happen in this match. And so Foley comes out first. He's old man kind of music. When we was watching this the other day, we was actually talking. I really liked his old man kind of music.
It did work then in 1998, but by the time very late 98, when he's challenging as a face for the WWF title against The Rock, it makes no sense because he was like the goofy Mankind by then, and having this really dramatic, dreary music just didn't work. So that's when the car crash music gets in.
Car crash rock riff, yeah.
That's the one, which is much better for his character.
Yeah, agreed. So he comes out with a chair, which would play its part later on in the match.
The weapon.
Oh Christ! He immediately goes in the cage. He inspects inside the cage. He goes in. He kind of pretends he's in the cage. Then he goes out, and that's when he climbs the cage. They didn't have the footholes cut into the cage in these days, so he's actually climbing an actual cage. Makes it to the top of his chair, and then Undertaker comes out, slight hobble in his walk, does his great entrance.
Everyone has pyro as well. That's a bit of a weird
pyro, yeah. Obviously gets his pop because he's the bloody Undertaker. Stands outside the cage, looks up, sees Mick, Mankind, looking down at him, gesturing to join him. He derobes and he joins him. He gets on top of the cage. They kind of just brawl a little bit, and it's not actually that long. This is the one thing that always surprises me when I rewatch it. It's just how quickly from Undertaker getting to the top of the cage to the bump, just how quick that is. It's it's less than 90 seconds, right? I think
probably because the top of that cage is not reinforced at all. There's bits where they walk through and it starts to break through, and this is not the panels. The panel that was supposed to, the later spot which was supposed to break in a particular way. And to be honest, I know these are professional wrestlers and they're trained for every time they get in the ring, there's a chance for a career or life-altering injury or even death. It's a bit different to be fighting on top of a 16-foot cage, which is sagging and giving way every time you try and attempt to do anything. So they probably wanted to get the spot over and done with as quickly as they could.
Yeah. So as they walk towards the edge, they do, as you mentioned. I can't remember. I think it's the Undertaker's foot actually goes through the corner of one of the panels.
Yeah, it goes through a breakthrough.
And then the infamous spot, the infamous bump. Undertaker grabs Mick round the back of his neck and by his belt line and just hoofs him off the side of the cage, off the cell, landing on the Spanish announce table with an absolute splat. And underneath, he ends up underneath the fucking table, which is it's one of those iconic visuals. And fuck yeah, JR and the King are flabbergasted. Probably JR's most infamous call of he's broken in half.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say as well, because Mankind gets buried underneath the top panel of the commentator's table, he doesn't fucking move. And because you don't see his face or can see him moving, you think he's fucking dead. He's actually dead.
What's going to happen here? Undertaker fighting back. He's fighting back. They're right above us, folks, and I don't like it a damn bit. Oh, my God. Look out. Oh, man! Good God Almighty! Good God Almighty! They killed him! Oh, my God. As God is my witness, he is broken in half!
So you mentioned this the other day, actually. It's always it's always Jerry King Lawler's. It's not, he's like he's doing his normal voice. He's not actually doing his character, his annoying heel commentator character voice. He's just like, oh my God, Oh my god, he's dead. It's
Yeah,
just
but can you imagine if he fucking started shooting, going like, I can't even fucking do Jerry Lawler because I'll probably get our podcast banned for it because of all the shit he get away with in '98. But as it's the second bump as well, where it literally is just because it's sobering hearing him talk that way because we're so used to him healing out going and all that shit, but hearing him go like, "That's it, he's dead."
So Foley takes the bump, and it's just fucking. I mean,
Chaos.
In hindsight, obviously he's healthy-ish. He's he has a lot of he's had a lot of hip surgeries in his time to be pain free, but he didn't die. So it's looked. I think people look at this in awe. It's a fantastic bump. It's an amazing piece of stunt work, I suppose you can say. And one thing that, again, you mentioned this on the weekend to consider is that when Shane McMahon when he's been taking his cell bumps in the last 2 years, the table that he drops on, when you actually look at it from footage, is actually quite heavily padded
with a beanbag.
It's heavily padded, and it's designed. Well, again, people know that spot's coming, so it's prepared for. Whereas this spot was prepared for by its those involved, but not really. The ring and stuff weren't prepared, and as we'll get to in a minute, the cage wasn't for other spots.
The commentator's table wasn't exactly prepared because, as I think Pritchard may have pointed out and Mick pointed out, obviously they couldn't go round to the table and take the monitors off because obviously if Foley hit the table and he actually gone straight into the monitor, that would have probably dug straight into his fucking broke a bone or something.
So Foley
he collides. He turns on his side as he's going down, and he whacks down. The actual box collapses like pretty well, and he ends up rolling from the momentum right underneath the top layer of it, which actually works quite well. But it's as good as you're ever going to get. I mean, you are asking a near 300-pound man to basically fall off a 16-foot structure and then
not die
and land on an MDF table.
Yeah, I listened to an interview of Foley talk about this the other day, and he said that when he lands, it obviously rings his bell, and you can see it. We'll get to it in a sec, but you can see that he's dazed, and he actually the first thing he thought to himself was, "Oh, right, I missed the monitors. This was a success, right?"
Yeah.
So he does the bump. Taker stands on top of the cage in a very menacing way. A very, very great shot, actually. They always get these great shots of Taker looking down.
It's always the simplest. It's the simplest old school camera work where if you want to get someone imposing and terrifying, you go for the low angle. And naturally, because Taker's so fucking high up, it's always going to be a low angle. But you've got his hair draped over his face. You can't see his mouth. You can only just see his eyes, and they're piercing downwards. And obviously, probably deep down, he's absolutely mortified as to what's going on and needs to find out what's still going. But the actual shot, because we're used to seeing Taker dead-eyed, it's like, Jesus Christ, he's actually intentionally tried to kill him off the cage. So from a character perspective, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So the EMTs come out. Vince comes out, which...
weird.
Well, it is weird, yeah. Terry Funk comes out, and obviously Funk and Foley had a bit of a prickly relationship on screen, kayfabe, and JR kind of covers for that by saying, they've had their differences, but, Terry Funk cares about me, that kind of thing.
Adds a bit of realism to it. Know it sounds. I think this is what Russo always wanted to have, where people were like, "Holy shit, is this supposed to have happened?" Because it must have happened because they filmed it. But now Thingy Bob's out as well, Funk's out. So what the fuck's going on?
Yeah. Well, so they get him on a gurney. The French chiropractor guy is helping Mick with his shoulder because he did pop his shoulder out during this bump, I do believe. Anyway, they get him about halfway down the entrance, and we were talking about this on the weekend, and it's until you highlighted it, I forgot just how great and iconic it is. So the camera kind of pans away, and then the camera goes back to the entrance, where you expect to see Mankind being taken out and the match abandoned. But no, there's commotion, and the camera zooms in and opens up, and you see Foley's up. He's standing up. He's trying to get away from the EMTs, and he's got this twisted, gnarled smile on his face.
That's it.
And
they cut back to Taker, who's halfway down the cell.
Yeah.
You can't see his eyes, but you can see he's literally standing still as if like, what the fuck's going on? And then you cut back to Mick, and I think, is it Dave Hebner or Earl Hebner? And they're trying to hold him back. He's just literally got the deranged look on his face. He just breaks away and goes. The way he gets his arms on the cage, he's like a mad animal. He just pinches the cage and then just yanks himself back up again. It's like so well fucking done.
It's like he claws his way back up.
Exactly. And fair fucks to Kevin Dunn, because again the sequence of camera work, which is first shot is on the the entrance ramp, and you see him being wheeled out. Cut to Taker, and he's coming down. You don't hear anything what's going on. And then the next cut we see is the jump cut where he's literally standing up again. You're like, what the fuck is he doing standing up? Where the fuck did he come from?
Yeah, JR is also great here, yeah.
He wants to go back up.
Expecting a Hell in a Cell match. And look at him. You're kidding me. Are you kidding me? He wants to go back up. Mankind is going back up. No way. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so he climbs the cage again. Undertaker... That's the great. I love that visual as well, where they're both climbing up the other sides of the opposite sides of the cage.
Yeah,
going back up. Right. So as they go back up, this is where the second bump was supposed to be a lot safer and more controlled than it ended up being. So what was supposed to happen, according to those involved, was after Taker chokeslams him, the cage was supposed to give way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He was then going to be chokeslammed again, and it would give way again a little bit. And in this time, there might have been another chokeslam involved in this, but what would happen was that an opening would be created that Mick would then kind of slide out into, leaving his legs available basically to grab. Taker would grab one or both of his legs, and there'd be a kind of dangling spot. And then, he'd kind of tuck and roll, and he'd probably, bend up, tuck his chin, and Taker would drop him, and he'd take a kind of back bump. It would still look pretty visually good, but really, of a 16-foot drop, he'd probably be taking about a 10-foot drop, maybe not.
Jumping off the top rope.
Yes. Not as bad as it ended up being. So what happened was Undertaker goes to give him the first choke slam. He goes, he lands on the chair that he threw up there. And then him and the chair proceed to go completely through the cell ceiling. And he takes a bump, which is fucking violent as fuck.
Because he wasn't expecting to go on the ring.
No, he wasn't.
Bounce off the cell.
Yep, and he just lands on the chair, which smashes his teeth up through his nose.
Oh,
an injury that would be, I believe, 14 stitches when he got to the back.
That's pretty impressive, because when I knocked a tooth out of my thing and I bit into my lip, I had 5, I think. And mine's a tiny little fucking thing.
9 stitches less than Mick Foley.
Fuck that. That looks low.
So he takes this bump, and again, this is when JR does his "stop the damn match" call.
God! That's it. He's dead.
Now if he throws him up on the other side, there's. Good God! That's it. He's dead. Well, somebody stop the damn match!
That's it. He's dead from the King, which again.
There's no laugh. There's no high pitched. It's literally his normal speaking going. That's it. He's dead.
Yeah. Oh God. So Funk immediately gets in the ring. He gets surrounded by EMTs again, and everyone's checking he's okay. This is when Undertaker comes down through the newly created hole they've made, and takes a very awkward landing as he tries to protect his broken ankle.
That's the effort, though. He's all right.
Yeah. Fairly certain the whole Funk. So he attacks Terry Funk. It was probably a thing to just buy time whilst they woke up Foley.
No, because Foley was still. he was massively concussed because of the chair smashing on his face.
That's what I'm saying.
So they managed to get somehow. I don't know because people when they're concussed they tend to like go on fucking autopilot.
Yeah.
So they checked he was all right, and he said, "I'm fine." And they're like, "You sure, Mick? You're fine?" And then Funk was like, "God damn, better waste some time." And he was like, got chokeslammed out of his fucking shoes.
He actually gets he actually does get
his shoes
out of his shoes. It is very funny.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, so this is when Mick Foley now has one of his teeth visibly in his nose, and people would go on to say that the reason why they didn't basically just get it moved or ask the ref to take it out of it is because they thought it was a booger.
Which is, for most of the time, it is snot. You wouldn't expect it to be a fucking tooth that got lodged up his nose. I dread it. I can't even imagine how the fuck that would look, because it obviously went through his lip and then up into his nostril. Oh, Jesus, man. And then he's smiling.
Yeah, then they interact a little bit, and then he bumps Undertaker off the ropes as he goes for an old school.
That's it.
And then that's when he sits down on the bottom turnbuckle, and he looks over with that smile and the tooth and the bloody mouth.
More good camera work as well.
More good camera work. More good work from JR. And then the most crazy thing about this, for me, is that this is when the match actually starts.
Yeah, then they start actually doing spots.
So this is when they actually wrestle like a quick. Well, I say it's like an 8-minute match maybe from here.
It flies by. I mean, obviously they have a little walk and brawl outside. Foley tries to use the steps and just obviously his arm's in complete fucking agony. And I don't know if it's part of the story or not, but he can't pick up the steel steps. So Taker proceeds to pick up and then just smashes him right in the shoulder into the cell. And then is this where Taker does the worst suicide dive?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cell history,
Foley moves about 5 seconds before he does the dive, and he still goes through with it because it was obviously this is when I'm going to blade move.
Yeah, of course. But
yeah, Taker blades. Foley takes control for a bit. Beats him up a bit. There's a couple of good DDTs that he does, and
Foley hits it's the variation of the pile driver where you drag them by their trunks onto a chair.
Yeah, what's it called?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's good.
It is good. They never get it nowadays, though. Not in WWE.
No. And the noise it makes when his head actually hits the chair as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, there's a fucking dent afterwards. I don't know. I know, obviously, most steel chairs they're gimmicked, so they're bent in the middle. They used to when they used to brain people. They used to break them in half a little bit so they would encase someone's head, but that was not there before.
So this then leads to another first in WWF. The thumbtacks. He goes and gets the thumbtacks from under the ring, lays them out on the canvas, and general rule of gimmicks, if you set it up, what happens, Harry?
You either go through it or you get it done to you.
I love it when he's got the mandible claw on Taker, he gets on his back and Taker back body drops it. Well, not back body drops, kind of backs him onto the fit. Yeah, backdrop, that's it. And he misses the tacks. He only gets on the outside of the tack. So Foley, obviously the performer that he is.
Despite the fact he's concussed, taking 16-foot bumps and had his tooth
in his nose. He proceeds to be not displeased, but he obviously wants to be in the tack, so he takes the backdrop and then proceeds to roll in the tacks, gets up, is then chokeslammed into the tacks, I believe, and takes a tombstone, and Taker gets the win, and everyone just breathes again.
Crowd chant Taker afterwards. He leaves, and then Foley gets a standing ovation, and fuck knows how he manages to walk out with just a bit of assistance. He doesn't go on a. I love the way
Terry Funk kind of does he points at him, and he just points at Foley as he's carrying him out, as in basically, you fucking clap this man. This man deserves your applause. You clap him.
My goddamn shoes gone. I gotta walk home in 3 hours' time.
Terry fucking Funk. What a man. Right, yeah. So that's the match, and what did Vince McMahon say to Foley when he got to the back?
Something along the lines with, "I appreciate everything you have done for this business, but never do that again."
Yeah. So we're obviously in the middle of the Monday Night Wars here, and Vince Vince does care about his performers, and I think you could look back and at some big things and in history of WWF, WWE, and see that he does actually care about his performers. And he says to Mick, he says, "I appreciate everything you did for this company tonight, but never do that again. This will never happen again." And yeah, there you go. I mean, we're at a point here when WWF do start to
They become more consistent in their slip-aways. There's only one last major hurrah for WCW, which we will be covering in a separate retrospective series.
yes.
But this is probably one of those moments. I mean, how the fuck does WCW coincidentally would try and top this years later? But this is the first one, and this is the most spectacular one at the old Monday Night Wars.
Yeah, I still think this is just beautiful violence in pro wrestling.
It's one of the most it's difficult to call it a perfect match, but it kind of is because it covers everything you would want in this type of match. You've got the massive ultra bumps, which have never been topped even to this day. I mean, they've tried replicating them, but they never get past the initial psychotic violence as they are, because this one was just completely raw. Obviously, they'd never be able to do a bump like they did this time without there being, as you say, with the Shane matches where there's like the fucking bean bags underneath.
Yeah.
They're scary enough bumps, but Mick he basically jumped off a 16-foot cell and took a diving roll onto the commentator's box. And then you've got the other bump as well where his face gets completely caved in by a fucking chair.
Yeah.
And then thumbtacks. But no, this is my favourite Hell in a Cell match. I know people will say that there's been, in terms of wrestling, the Bad Blood one is obviously superior, as is a few of Taker's other ones as well, such as with
the one with Lesnar's pretty good.
Which one? The 2002
No
one?
Mercy?
Is that the 2002 one? Where
the original one, the first one they did.
Yeah. Although I did like their rematch. I can't remember the pay-per-view. The recent one, the one where they start ripping up the ring.
Hell in a Cell. That was
they've had two.
Pay-per-view,
yeah.
No, it was actually Hell in a Cell. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I did like that one as well. But Taker's had matches with obviously Triple H and Edge in Hell in a Cell, which I think for a wrestling perspective are much better. But this is it's only short and it basically covers everything you'd need in this type of match, which is just pure violence.
Yeah, Christ. The early Hell in a Cell matches, like the Taker one, Taker and Shawn and Taker and Mankind, are just very violent in both in their own ways, really. I mean, the Taker Shawn one is basically Taker murdering Shawn for about 15 minutes and then losing because of Kane, whereas the Mankind one is just this condensed, just ultra violent match that its official time is 17 minutes, but it doesn't feel like that at all. It just goes. Yeah,
even with the dead spots of the recovery bits. I mean, actually, to be fair to Foley, both of his recovery times, I think the most amount is spent on the very first bump. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes altogether. And considering what those bumps were, that's fucking inhuman that he was able to get up from them. Especially that second one as well. I know he was concussed to fuck, but the fact that he didn't die from it is a fucking miracle.
Well, quite. And there we go. Hell in a Cell, Undertaker, Mankind, King of the Ring, 98, 20 years ago. We're still talking about it now. We're still talking about it with that, romanticized way of talking about great historic pro wrestling.
Yeah, I agree.
People will still be talking about it in 20 years' time from now.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, this is the only time ever where I think my mum caught me watching wrestling and had to point out that it was fake, despite the fact that this is probably the absolute worst example of saying that wrestling's fake, because there's absolutely very little way of proving it.
Well, this match isn't fake.
No, Jesus, that's what I mean.
Predetermined, yes. Fake, certainly fucking not.
No, you can't fake it. That's what made me laugh about it. Like even years later, it's like, how the fuck do you fake it?
You don't.
There's nothing to fake. If anything, this is a testament to how fucking dangerous wrestling is. Because I know, obviously, every wrestling match is completely different, and you're never going to get bumps like this. Very well, you might get them in your backyard, like feds and stuff, but on the actual grand stage of the mainstream, this has never been replicated since. They've attempted it again, but they've never got to that, that raw essence of it.
Well, what do we have? We had Rikishi falling into a truck full of sawdust, which was just fucking weird.
You had the following year's WrestleMania with Taker and Bossman, which they couldn't do any of this, so they had to settle with Hanging the Bossman, which is one of those retrospective spots which is aged about as well as milk.
Yeah, I still hate that to this day.
It's such a boring match, even with the. I don't particularly mind the hanging as such because it was Taker in the Ministry and it was obviously fucking. It looked ridiculous.
I think it's strangely unnerving though that Bossman hanging.
Only because he's passed, but he didn't commit suicide. Had he did that, then this spot would, I imagine, be cut out of all broadcasts. But the fact that he's spinning around, and you can see it's not actually attached to his neck; it's like attached to a harness on his back. It's so ridiculous. I mean, we are covering again for spoilers for future retrospectives that will be covered the WrestleMania 14 or 15, sorry,
15.
So we'll have plenty of time to criticize that fucking bad match compared to this one. But as I said before, there have been better Hell in a Cell matches in terms of wrestling, but this one is if you ask someone, what would what would be the first Hell in a Cell match you'd recommend watching? I dare say this would probably be the one.
Yeah, with a disclaimer that it's
all other ones afterwards don't have people like falling off the top. Mostly
not in that way, and it doesn't have that commentary,
No, exactly. That's the other thing. This match is like a grand culmination of everything you'd really want. You've got the really dangerous spots. You've got really well crafted characters, really good camera work, and great commentary.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, let's wrap it up there. Let's finish this episode, this prologue. Farewell to Cheap Pops. This should be interesting going forward with talking about these things. So. Should we just say what we're planning, what we're looking to do over the next few months?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's go through.
Right. So one of the first storylines we're going to tackle is the streak, Goldberg streak.
Oh yes,
yes. That will start from around. Well, that will start with his Nitro debut, his infamous call of "That's one," and then it will. Well. We'll have some lovely little beats along the way.
We're not going to go through all 108 matches before the Georgia Dome, don't worry. No, however many it is.
But also, some of them were house shows and they don't exist on tape, so we couldn't even if we wanted to, Harry.
We're not. We wouldn't do that.
No,
I can't watch. I can't watch it. We were going to do fucking Starrcade '97 as part of the Montreal Screwjob, and I watched that fucking match with him and Mongo, and holy shit, I can't. No.
Yeah, we won't put you through that again. But we'll do some of his big matches, some of his very good matches, some of his stinkers perhaps, and it will obviously go up to Starrcade '98 and just a little bit beyond when the streak ended. But we'll get to that. Don't worry. We're also going to look at things like the Ministry of Darkness, that whole storyline with its.
Whoa! I've seen this program. You're gonna love it. It's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Is that where it comes from?
Oh, it probably does. All we did was watch fucking Howard Stern and fucking Jerry Springer and all the other 90s schlock. I wouldn't half put it past him watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes, and we'll get to Mick Foley. We'll get to. You want to look at, is it 99 2000 part of his career, right?
For Foley?
Yes.
Only I want to watch the one I wanted to cover was his retirement angle, which really starts.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's either very, very late 1999 when he gets fired on the pink slip on a pole match, even though Russo's not there, and obviously that culminates in Cactus Jack, Raw going on strike. We're going to the World Rock Federation.
Oh, right, and then obviously WrestleMania 2000.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. A McMahon in every corner.
Christ. Yes, no, that sounds good. These are all things I have fond memories of. Probably
Really,
going to really hate.
WrestleMania 2000, you have fond memories.
Well, I remember at the time feeling like it was this huge fucking big deal. I suppose at the time it was, but now it's one of the worst WrestleManias.
We'll get to there in 2 years' time, but I will spoil it and say WrestleMania 2000 was the first Mania that I thought that was really shit. And this was after WrestleMania 15, which also was pretty shit throughout as well.
Agreed.
But we'll get to it.
We will. And there we go. Farewell to Cheap Pops, Prologue in the books. So thank you for listening. You can follow us on Twitter, SWA_podcast. We're on SoundCloud, obviously, soundcloud.com/smarksforattitude, and email smarksforattitude@gmail.com. And we're on iTunes as well. Just search Smarks. If you search Smarks, we come up on the thing, because obviously there isn't that many podcasts called Smarks. So there you go. Thank you once again. I'm Reese. Thanks for listening. Say goodbye, Harry.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Cool. Toodaloo.
See ya.